Yeah, home for you. Meeting. I welcome you all to the 1288th meeting and call meeting to order. Now come the four-way test. Giti, may I request you, please?
Absolutely. Can you guys see me or hear me?
Yes.
What we say, we really should ask ourselves, is it the truth? Is it fair to all concerned? Will it build goodwill and better friendships? And will it be beneficial to all concerned?
That's true. It's something to ponder. Every sentence has to be thought about what it means. Thank you, Giti.
Thank you.
Giti done a good job.
Thank you.
The birthdays on the 11th April, we have three birthdays. Rotarian Amita Rana Day, Dr. Kim Chawla, and my husband's, Fateh Singh. And on the 13th, Rotarian Dr. Rajendra Prasad. On the 14th, Rotarian Surinder Chaudhary. And on the 17th, Sita Vaidlingam.
Sita.
Yes, Sita's birthday, yes. We always look forward to it every year. With her, always provided by writing us. Anniversaries. Provided by 12th of April is Rotarian Dilsher and Bharti's anniversary. On the 16th, Rotarian Ravina and Mukul Vasi. On the 20th, Rotarian Sanjeev and Bibi Rani. On the 20th of April again, Rotarian Satish and Alka Kaura. Happy anniversary and happy birthday during this month of April. Now for some Rotary information. Begin with Balgram. Pleased to share with the members that the computers, bunk beds, study desks, and computer tables have been delivered at Balgram, and hoping that this infrastructural improvement at Balgram will help the children the better standard of living. The funds for the same were very kindly contributed by Rotarian Sunil Sharma, Rotarian Anup Soni, and Mr. Tarun Murarka ji, a close friend of our Rotarian past president, Sandeep Khanna ji. Thank you once again. The next also, it gives me pleasure to share with the members that under the CSR funds from Select City Walk, an online vocational center at Balgram has also been set up by providing laptop, projector, and projector screen. And we hope this will also be soon going to start after this, once the COVID is a little better. Okay. Next is the RCGC Single Vocational Center. On the 1st of April, certification program of 17 girls who passed their exams at South Extension Center was held. Out of these 17 girls, 10 girls for the lockdown, and 7 girls passed their respective exams in March 2021. One of the girls who passed her exams was also appointed by Singer, which was a great achievement, I would say, as a teacher at some other center.
There's one person taller than me who's Vicky Sethi.
Mrs. Seema Gupta.
Older guy. I'm looking at.
Gifted a foot machine to the girl at South Extension Center to make her self-independent. Mrs. Zuma, a friend of Rajni hand machine.
Haji, please have everybody muted. Somebody's mic is on.
Yeah.
That is disturbing.
Yeah. And Rotarian Deepika Venkatesh also gifted another sewing machine to a girl from a very, very humble background at the South Extension Vocational
Rajiv, please mute everybody. Rajiv.
Thanks to Deepika
Except for Nabha and everybody else, please.
and her friend, Mrs. Seema, Mrs. Ruma, for their kind donation. Rajiv, you can take it on. Srinivas Puri Balwadi. Please go ahead. The next is concerning Srinivas. We'll be pleased to learn that our past president, Rotarian Ajay Ji, also organized the CSR funds with the support of Mrs. Neeraj Ghai of Select City Walk for the infrastructural improvement at Balwadi, new study desks for the children and inverters, coolers, exhaust fans, battery, etc. Thank you. Our very sincere thanks to Ajay Ji for the effort made to arrange the CSR funds. The next very important venture that we're going forward is the Rotary Art Fair. Because this has been a little difficult year of COVID-19 and we will not be able to hold charity ball and the club needs funds to sustain our projects. This year, we are planning to organize the fundraiser, an online art fair and Rotary Emerging Artist of the Year Award. We plan to launch this event hopefully the first week of May. Members are requested to kindly help to collect all information of the prospective buyers, once again requesting you, and also try to get directive RWAs and other social clubs to whom they are attached and send it to Rajiv Taneja so that we could have them visit our fair and make it a success. Secretary's announcement. Okay, I'll carry on. Wednesday, on the 21st of April, we have our GOV, which is online. The time would be from 6:30 to 8 p.m. Our DG, Governor Rotarian Sanjeev Rai Mehraji and his team will be visiting our club for the GOV. Board members are requested to kindly join by 6:30 and members of the Rotary Club Delhi Garden City are requested to join by 7 p.m. Thank you. And now, proudly take the pleasure to announce we have our guest speaker with us, Sanchayita Gajapati Raju, kind courtesy of past presidency. And we are proud to have her today to give us a talk. It's a very young, enterprising girl. She's a daughter of the Royal House of Vizianagaram. And she looks after many, many schools. I hear about 40 schools, the water conservation and dispensation program. And it also takes care of the coveted Temple Trust. I request our senior past president, Sita Vaidlingamji, to please introduce the speaker. Thank you.
Well, good evening, Rotarians, guests, everyone who's decided to come to this meeting today, this Friday evening. I wish you all good evening. I also welcome our young chief guest, Sanchayita Gajapati Raju, whom I've known all her life. And therefore it gives me particular pleasure to invite her today, because when you see children whom you've known from the time they were born, growing up and becoming successful, then that gives you a special pride and joy. Now, all our lives, we've heard about princesses. We've heard about the princess and the pea. The princess who slept on so many mattresses, but there was a little hard pea under one of them, and the whole night she could not sleep and she was black and blue. We've heard about Cinderella, who was actually, who married a prince and who at the stroke of the midnight hour turned into a pumpkin. We've heard of Snow White, who was also a princess, who was lying somewhere in a remote corner, waiting for a prince to come and kiss her and bring her back to life. We've heard of Indian princesses like Padmavati, who, when they heard that their husband has died on the battlefield, they bravely went into the Sati fires and self-immolated themselves. These are the kind of princesses whom we have grown up hearing about. Now, allow me to present to you today a real life flesh and blood princess who is a little bit of all these things, as delicate as the princess of the pea, as dashing as Padmavati, but at the same time, she's very, very real in today's modern world. She is a princess of the dynasty of Vijayanagaram, which is a very, very old and renowned dynasty of the south and known for its valor. And she is the daughter of one of the princes of that dynasty, and she's no less a princess in her own right. Now, this girl is highly educated. She's very much a modern girl of today's times. But in spite of all that, she has actually done something that is unthinkable, not only in the South, but even in the North, because normally women are supposed to be all the time praying for the good of everybody, but normally they don't head a temple trust. She's heading a temple trust, the Manas Devasthanam Trust. She's which is quite a feat in politics-ridden Andhra Pradesh, where everybody is fighting some kind of inner battle with somebody else. She has braved all that, and she's occupying this very, very prestigious position. She's also working a lot for the girl child. She's working, she has set up water dispensation programs throughout the state. She has already at this very young age caught the eye of no one other than Prime Minister Modi himself, who's following her very, very carefully, because he's a good judge of people and politicians, and he knows that this is a girl who will be going very far indeed. So I will not take much time telling you about what I know a lot about this girl, but I would prefer it if she can tell you about herself and about her achievements and about her plans for the future. Thank you so much for coming today, Sanchita, and please do give us a glimpse about what your plans are for the betterment of India, for the betterment of the girl child, for the betterment of society at large. Over to you.
Thank you so much for that very, very warm introduction and generous words. But since, like you said, you've known me since I was a baby, I have to just nod my head and agree with all and take in those showers of kind, generous words. So thank you for that. I'm delighted to be here this evening. I think this is the new normal where we all connect in the virtual world. I don't know how young I am, but I will tell you a little bit about myself and some of the work that I've done in the past and what really has kept me going. So I'm actually a lawyer like you, and I worked in the media, and I worked with my parents for some time. And I think all of us here are very lucky that we come from families of privilege. And like most of my friends, when I wasn't sure about what I wanted to do, I started to work with my parents in their business of parliament. And yes, my biological father was the Maharaja of Vijayanagaram, but my parents got divorced when I was quite young, and my mother got married again. And Baba, who's also like my father, is a filmmaker. And I grew up in a very modern world where we were always told, my mom always used to say, what will keep you going in life is the ability to stand on your own feet, especially for a woman. That is the most important. And so I did like everybody else. I studied, and then I started working with them. And then there came a point in my life where I had to make that decision. Do I continue working with them in their business, or do I want to explore other opportunities? And this was way back in 2011. I don't know if you recollect, that was the time that Anna Hazare movement and all of that was happening. There was a lot of activism in the whole space. And that's when I remember I told them, I said, listen, I don't think my heart is in the business. I want to do my own thing. I want to set up a non-profit, but I believe that I want to use technology as an enabler and work in water and sanitation. So I said, my mom said to me very clearly, she said, it's very easy to take our money and you be the good cop. So I will support you for a year. And after that, if you don't make it on your own, I'm going to close the tap. So I have a little presentation. I don't know how I access that. Is the presentation available for me to show? Otherwise, I will just chat if that's not there.
Yes, please.
You got the access?
Yes, please do.
How do I show it?
Share screen.
So you want me to share it on, you want me to play it on my computer?
He's allowed you to share the screen. Yeah, let him allow you to share the screen.
Okay. So anyway, that's how this whole idea came about. And I said, I want to use technology in the social sector. And I started with the idea of water and sanitation. This is way back in 2011, before sanitation became center stage and you had everybody talking about building a toilet. It was a different context at that time. And the reason why I decided to choose these two areas is because I really believe that this is like the building block of anything you want to do in the development sector. Especially being a woman, the first thing I do when I go into the villages is I stop drinking water because there's no place that is safe that a woman can actually go to a toilet. Or if you talk about girls wanting to remain in school, that's very, very difficult, especially because of the quality of toilets they have access to. So having worked in the corporate space, I felt, and leveraged technology in my previous avatar, I felt there was a dearth of using technology in the social sector. And that's really how my journey began. Do I have access to the presentation? Otherwise, I will just leave it.
Yes, you have. You have.
You
have? But how? I'm not able to see it.
Just a minute, Raju, just.
Anita, you will have to just go to the share screen button at the bottom of the screen and just say share screen after that.
I'll have to do that. I'm somehow not having that as an option.
Rajiv, if you can do that for her, please.
I've got it. Share screen.
Yeah.
So,
just double click the file, it will come up.
Double click the file. Okay. I'll just do that. Just a second. While technology has its good things, it also has its pitfalls. It doesn't always listen. So let me just get this open. Let's see if it's working. So can you see anything? Is there anything that's visible?
No, we can't.
Now?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, now it's coming on.
Okay. So this is like a little bit of a presentation that I made, and this will give you an idea on why I got into this space. Is all of us, and I can say that with a great degree of certainty, we live in homes. We don't have to worry about where our water comes from or where we have to go to the loo. But a large part of India, this is their reality. And I believe that nothing ravages human dignity more than having to drink contaminated water and defecate in the open. It is one of the most dehuman, it really, you don't feel like a human being. You feel like you don't have basic dignity when you don't have access to something which is so very fundamental. And it is a reality even today for a large part of the country, contrary to what many studies say. Because if you just go out of our homes into the bastis or into areas, you guys are working in so many of these spaces, it still is a reality. A large part of our country defecates in the open, and a large part of our villages have access to no safe water. So it was in this context in 2011 that I really started to work in water and sanitation. And I mean, when you open the newspapers, even as early as last week, you see the reality of manual scavenging and the fact that most people, even though this is banned as per the rules, a large number of people still carry human excreta on their head. They get into our sewage pipes. They don't have the necessary protective gear. And the reality that we live in, like you said, I'm from Andhra, not only in Andhra, all over the country, the toxic virus of caste is so very alive and kicking. It is ingrained into our system. And the problem of caste, lack of using technology, and this combination of, the social hierarchy that we have has been one of the biggest challenges in ensuring that you have a sustainable solution for water and sanitation. So that's why if you compare our numbers with the neighboring states of even say Pakistan and Bangladesh, initially we were far behind them when it came to the very basic of water and sanitation because of the challenges that caste posed in our country. So whatever solution that I was looking at had to factor this in when I was coming up with a solution. a large part of the toilets that we have even today in our villages and in schools remain unused. And when I went into the field and I spoke with people, a lot of people think that one of the reasons the toilets are unused is because people don't want to use the toilets. I would disagree with that. I don't agree with that at all. The reason why most of the toilets remain unused is because A, they're pathetically constructed. They do not have access to safe water to wash themselves because we're not a tissue paper country. And also feel very, very suffocated and stuffy. They're literally like boxes. So if you had to use that toilet, like look at the toilets that you're seeing on your screen. If I had to use a toilet like this, I would much rather take a chance and defecate in the open. So keeping all these things in, for some reason I can't go ahead. The presentation is just stuck here. No, it's going ahead. Keeping all this in mind is when I said, I want to work in water and sanitation, but it has to be a solution that looks at the reality in which I'm working. So what did I do? I designed an integrated solution, using bio-toilets. Now, a bio-toilet doesn't need any human intervention. There is absolutely, it is an eco-friendly solution that's available. It's a technology that's available with the Ministry of Defense, with DRDO. And in the late 90s, it was available for commercial use. Till then, it was available only for the armed forces. And we also ensure that you have access to water for washing in the toilets, and we have access to safe drinking water for the students. So what we do actually is we go into schools, we set up an entire renewable energy plant on the rooftop so that this is a self-sustaining ecosystem. You're not dependent on any outside element. So whether the electricity goes or it doesn't go, the water can be pumped out of the bore well. The water can be purified. They have access to 1.8 million liters in every site as we speak. So I have around 72 million liters of WHO standard water that we produce in every school. And the wastewater that is created is used for the washing in the bio-toilets. So in a sense, it's like a self-sustaining ecosystem. But I'm sure you'll agree with me that with the many projects that you've also done over the years, setting up the project is not a challenge. If you get the funds and you have access to technology, anybody can create a project. But the challenge lies not in creating the project, but ensuring the sustainability of the project. So we have a couple of parameters. Number one, I work only in all girls schools. So all our beneficiaries are girls, because I think it's very important for the girls to stay in school. Before most of our interventions, a lot of the girls would drop out of school for two reasons. A, the primary responsibility of fetching water still falls on the shoulders of young girls, semi-urban India. The boys are never kept at home to go and fetch the water. It's always the girls who have to do that. So what did we do? I said, if the girl comes to school, that day the girl gets to take home 5 liters of water for her family, which will serve the drinking water requirements. So like a pull to keep the girls in school. And we gave them access. If you look at the toilets, there's adequate ventilation, there's adequate light, because I really believe that poor people don't need poor solutions. I'm not doing them any favor by giving them this. This is something that is their right. It is about human dignity. And if you're doing something, you might as well do it properly, otherwise not do it. It's pointless to give them something which is substandard, which I wouldn't use, because at the end of the day, human beings are human beings. And what I would do after setting up this project is I will not keep ownership of the project. I donate 100% of the ownership to the beneficiaries. So we largely work with all girls schools, but we also work in villages. And you see some of the girls here on the screen. I work, in fact, the girl in the blue and green sari, she's the sarpanch. So we work only with women sarpanches. And in the villages, I set this up in what is called the SC colony of the village. So they have a scheduled caste Dalit colony of the village. So this ensures that the water is accessible for everybody in the village. But if you want that water, you'll have to take that walk into the Dalit colony to take it. initially that creates a lot of resistance. People don't like that, you know, and they say, you know, in Telugu, they say, why are you wanting to put it there? It's not dirty. It's the various challenges. But no, I believe this may be a small step, but it's a step towards social engineering. And what we do is we choose women or girls from within the community, and we train them on how to operate and maintain the entire system. So your basic plumbers, electricians, all are from within the community, so that once I exit the project, the basic O&M is taken care of. They get skill development. They can use their services and charge people outside. And we also allow them to sell the water, the extra water, at a nominal cost of 2 rupees per 20 liters. Now, what this does is it creates a certain kind of financial corpus. So tomorrow, if they have to buy a filter, if they have to change a bulb, if they have to do any kind of cost that they need to incur, they don't have to go and ask anybody. They have the ability to look after it. I mean, even if you give somebody a Mercedes-Benz, if you get serviced every year, twice a year, the car is going to collapse. So it's the same thing with this project. And in the schools, we make it part of their curriculum. So the girls are taught how to clean solar panels once a week, you know, the concept of how the whole thing, how renewable energy is used, how do you use a bio toilet, how is it that, you know, you have all your systems in place. So in a sense, it's also like a system for them to learn, because it becomes a sense of empowerment. They're proud of the toilets and the water station that they have, and they look at it with a sense of dignity. It's not like anybody's done them any favor. This girl here that you're seeing, she is one of the operators, and she gets a salary, I think around 5,000 rupees a month is what she gets. This is generated from the income that they make from the project. So it's just it's a small way of saying that if a project is not sustainable, it's very difficult in the long run for it to work. And I mean, like you said, I've grown up in Delhi. I've lived in Delhi, and Delhi is a landlocked city. We have a whole amount, our rivers are literally untreated sewage that is flowing, and our groundwater has largely been depleted. And this was way back in 2015-16, if I remember correctly, where in partnership with the Delhi Jal Board, we had treated raw, untreated sewage. And if you look at those 4 beakers there, we'd converted raw, untreated sewage into WHO standard drinking water. Now, the first reaction that I got is called the yuck factor, saying, who on earth will drink water whose source is sewage? It's something that's so dirty and so filthy. But this is the way forward. If you look at Orange County, if you look at some places in Australia, if you look at what Singapore has done, they have also started treating raw sewage and converting it into safe water. They mix it, of course, into the main system, and they call it new water. But this is one of the initiatives that we took in Delhi. And it's actually, as on today, we have produced, I think, over 120 million liters of raw sewage has been safely treated and converted into WHO standard water. The idea being twofold. One, you look at the water scarcity issue, but B, which is more important, is you treat the effluent which is going into our waterways, which comes back into your body whether you like it or not, in the food that you eat, in the air that you drink, in the whole environment in which we live. We're surrounded by filth. And unless we treat our filth, and we look at it as a source of wealth, we're really, I mean, even if you look at the pandemic that we're having right now and the conflict that man has with nature, I think perhaps one of the main reasons that is because we're doing many things which are not sustainable. So the whole idea of whatever little work that I have done over the last, it's going to be 10 years this year, is looking at water and sanitation holistically. And this is something that I'm happy it's worked for us very well. And we have over 35,000 girls who have benefited daily and directly from our water and sanitation initiatives. And yeah, I mean, I've enjoyed this journey. I don't know if what I've said has made sense or not, but largely this is what I've done. And on the ground, I would say that we have seen a marked improvement in the attendance of the girls. And I think that at the end of the day is something that has worked for us. And so right now, like the model that we are using has been largely duplicated by most CSR companies who've scaled up. So it was this model that won us the Google Impact Challenge. And I got my first grant of 3 crores in 2013. And I think once that competition we won, because of the work that I did, that opened up a lot of doors, and that also gave us credibility and visibility. Like you in the Rotary already have that. But if somebody's setting up a new organization, the first thing they will ask you is, where is your experience? Why should we back an idea? Why do you need renewable energy there? You know, this is 2013 when solar panels were very expensive. But I really believe that technology can be leveraged to transform lives, more so in the social sector, because A, you can ensure that you have consistency, you can get in scale, it's easier to monitor. But technology without capacity building doesn't work. So you have to have a blend, which is what we have tried to do. And you can see we have even worked in some of the most remote tribal areas of Vizag, which now have access to safe water. So we give them like these cans that you see, we give them these 5-liter water cans, and then we take them home and, you know, I mean, you can see that face. I think that that's what we've done over the last 10 years. Of course, the last year has been challenging, different kinds of challenges, nothing to do with water and sanitation, more to do with politics and other challenges. But yeah, this is really what I do. And I think I got lucky. I got 2 incredible companies backing me. So Google was one of them. And then I had the IT company Oracle also, who came forward and supported pretty much all my projects in the local district administration. But I think our biggest support and strength came from the schools and the girls, because they thought that this is their project. You know, it was not my project. And the kind of support I got from them is what made these projects a success. So largely that's what I've done in a nutshell over the last 7-8 years.
Brilliant, Raju. Brilliant. Sanchita.
It is absolutely amazing work that you've done. It's wonderful. Very encouraging, and it'll motivate a lot of people, I think.
Well, I think
when I saw you first, I thought you were a school kid. Honestly, I didn't realize you're a young lady, done so well. That's so
I get when you so see what you love, you don't.
Really, honestly.
Are these projects all in the Vijayanagram area?
No, actually, 90% of them are in the Visakhapatnam district. Some in the tribal areas.
Okay. Have you tied up with any Rotary in the south of India, in the Visakhapatnam area?
No.
Sanchita, one of our members, Chirag Jain, whose brother-in-law is going to be the next international president of the Rotary, wants to know what Rotary can do for any of the projects on which you have laid your hand and your blessings.
I would love it if you have such chapters. They can come and help us with the maintenance. Because that is an area where I need somebody who is a little bit of an eye on the project. I don't know if it can be maybe once a month, or I don't know what the degree of involvement that's possible. But that is one area where I've always seen most organizations withdraw. So like, unfortunately, like when I say I do the maintenance, I do it for myself. I send a person once a month.
I swear it's come.
But if somebody can help us with that, wonderful. We can directly with the school, because most of the things in schools are pretty much set, but there are times when they need additional interventions and little odd spare parts to be bought, and something to go and just keep an eye. So I think that if they feel somebody is involved, then everybody is put on their toes. And that's what I use.
So Sanchita, are you doing anything? Sanchita, you can now stop the screen sharing. so that we can get a better view of you.
Oh, you mean I haven't done that? Okay, yes.
Yeah, so Sanchayita, very nice, very impressive work. I just want to know, are you doing anything in Delhi, in NCR?
At this point, no. I mean, I have done 2 projects in the past, but they're already done. So there's really nothing there that needs to be done. Right now, actually, to tell you the truth, the new projects that I'm doing are slightly unrelated to this. Like you were saying, I have taken over as the first ever founder family chairperson of any major Hindu temple in the country. So like after Tirupati, the Simhachalam Devasthanam, which was part of our family, they were custodians for the last many years. I have now taken over as the chairperson of that. Lot of things there that I and apart,
We're losing her.
Yeah. I'm sorry, we are losing you.
We are not able to hear you.
To hear very well. Yeah, now it's better.
That's better.
Okay.
Yeah,
yeah,
far better.
There's some disturbance, like, you know, like that white sound.
Okay, Sanchayita, I wanted to ask you, sorry, yeah, and ask you one thing, that, you know, have you got any, sorry? Yeah. So have you got any information on, you know?
Seems to be a lag.
I can't get you. There is some background sound.
Echoing. I can hear you guys.
Okay, okay. So what I wanted to ask you was that what is, you know, what are the reports on reaction to this water, to drink the treated water? Have you got any reports, you know, which are a little like cautioning or anything like that? I mean, like somebody's developed some problem in the body or something like that?
So when we handed over this project, for the first 1 year, almost every day, the Jal Board used to test the water to see, is it complying with your BIS 10,000 standards? Is it safe and fit for human consumption? And I'm happy to say that every day it met their standards, and they were quite happy, and they took over the project. I donated it to them because at the end of the day, I can't be physically going and doing projects. And as a non-profit, I'm technology agnostic. I'm not the owner of one solution versus the other. We are only catalysts. We put it together and we say this is one possibility for somebody to explore. But the one challenge that we did face is, like I said, the yuck factor. Nobody likes to drink water whose source you know is sewage. But whether we like it or not, in the food and the vegetables you consume, most of them are, you know, grown in such unhygienic conditions. That is why, you know, most of your foods, if you get them tested, they have E. coli, which is far more dangerous. At that time, the then Chief Minister, I mean the current Chief Minister, Mr. Kejriwal, had come along with his whole cabinet and his officers and everybody, and they drank the water, and he was gracious enough to say, I'm going to take this whole water and keep it in the secretariat so that, you know, you lead from the front. Of course, the various things, eventually they ended up using the water to wash the DTC buses. And this is WHO standard water, which broke my heart. But there is a silver line. You know, I think a year and a half after that, there was a huge conflict between Delhi and Haryana, and they had stopped the water supply. This was being, they went to court, and the wars between the states on water sharing had happened. That was the time they used this water, and they said, okay, at least we have some source of water. And for the Resident Welfare Association, the vicinity of their own, of the Jal Board, they did supply this water, and there were no complaints. So a lot of it is to do with mindsets. Like when you talk about sewage, the moment the sewage work comes, all of us turn our noses up because we say, you know, they're dirty and they smell, and, you know, I mean, it's stigmatized whether we like it or not. But till such time as some of that changes, I guess we are going to drown in our own filth. I mean, there's no other way out for us.
I have to comment on that, Sanchayita. Yeah. If I may comment on that and just say that, you know, it takes me back to my geography classes when I was in school, and I'm a lot older than you are. in which in the United Kingdom, it is out of sewage water. We recycle water in the UK and we drink that. So it is done everywhere to conserve water, and we need to learn how to do it. So I totally endorse what you've done, and it's a fantastic project.
Thank you.
So Sanchayta, I know it's like out of the conversation, but I thought like I'll just ask you, do you know in Visakhapatnam, GL and Raju uncle? He has 3 sons, Praveen, Pramod, and because I know the Raju families normally know each other. That's why.
So I must give you a heads up. The heads up is I was born in Hyderabad.
Okay.
I very much found that. But like I said, I was very young when my parents got divorced. And so my mom and Baba, the Chuma Gajapati, Raju and Ramesh Sharma, they pretty much brought me up on their own. And it's my biological father's extended family. While I wish them well, and I think there's space for all of us to coexist, they really had nothing to do with my life or my anything. So my mom for me is my rock. She's the only person that I know. But no, I've spoken to Pramod on the phone. I've never met him. He messaged me. Are you related to him?
Yeah, they are my, Pramod's dad and my father are friends from college. So we are like family friends.
Okay, I've never met Pramod. I have not met his
Pramod
family.
is the only brother who is very close to us. Out of the 3 brothers, he is married to Shobha Dey's daughter.
Yes, he messaged me and told me. So we did connect.
So there's the connect. So there's the connect. That's enough. Yeah.
Jaita, how many schools are you taking care of for this water conservation?
So we have 40 sites here in Visakhapatnam. And some of them way back in 2013 and 14. So they're still alive and kicking. Of course, there are always additional interventions that are required now and then, like it would be in any space. But yeah, they're all doing reasonably well. I'm quite happy with the way they have panned out over the years.
Is it being monitored that they're going according to what you had laid out and how?
Well, I won't say I've had 100% success, because I mean, that's just not possible. So in 1 or 2 sites, like in 1 or 2 of the villages, I did have some, local factors which perhaps I had not anticipated. So sometimes you get caught in the crossfire.
Yeah.
But by and large, in the schools, I would say they've been very good. Most of the principals have been very proactive, but then like in any organization, if the principal changes and the next principal is not so bothered because it's not come in his or her tenure, then that is a challenge that one has to factor in. That is a challenge that we have now and then.
Are you still looking at more schools in Visakhapatnam, that area, or?
Oh, no, to tell you.
Is everyone able to hear her? I'm not able to hear her.
Can you hear me?
For more schools.
I can hear you.
Yes. So no, I said, the truth, my plan for the coming year, for the next 2-3 years, actually more both in Simhachalam in the temple, because we're looking at redoing the entire kitchen and hopefully making it a automated kitchen. There's an Annaprasadam that we have there where we do poor feeding. And in the educational institutions, there's a lot of reform I'm bringing in there in terms of upgrading the infrastructure. Because at one point, they were premier institutes, but that was 150 years ago. The whole landscape of education has changed. And sometimes you need to just, relook at things and restructure them to meet the changing needs of education. You cannot be stuck in the past. So to tell you the truth, right now, the next year and a half, my focus is more in Mansas and Simhachalam. And bringing some changes there.
Okay.
So, yeah.
I'm sure you'll do very well.
Well, if you Google me and see, you think I'm a monster with horns on my head.
Not at all. Not at all. In fact, it's very impressive that at this young age, you've really taken it this far and done some very meaningful work with wonderful outcomes and measurable results, which you don't really see a lot of projects taking on. So many congratulations to you on such fantastic work, and it's been wonderful listening to you, and we could actually learn from you. Totally.
I think I got lucky. Also, I have incredible cheerleaders with my mother and Papa who let me do whatever it is I wanted in my life. And they said, it doesn't matter if you make a mistake, we've always got your back. So I think that's why I did some stress.
That's really nice.
Fantastic.
So good luck on all your new ventures.
Thank you very much. And thank you for I hope I can support you guys.
Absolutely fantastic
We
work.
learned from you.
Yes, yeah. It was such a pleasure to hear you, Sanchayata. Amazing work you've done.
Exactly.
Just very, very commendable. And wish you all the very best now in your, the temple venture that you're now getting into. And I'm sure you'll do amazing work there also.
Lovely, Ken. Very nice to have you. So much you've learned and you've really achieved a lot. Wonderful, wonderful. And wish you all success.
Thank you very much.
Well.
Thank you.
Thank you for being with us. And nice of Sita to have really introduced you. And I think she gave you a lovely fairy tale introduction. Snowball.
Well, Sanchayata has her mother's genes and Visakhapatnam was her mother's constituency. So obviously the place of choice for her. And then with Anand being the Vijayanagara Maharaja, so it's a dual benefit, you see. So, but I'm so glad you've done fabulous work there. And the Simachalam temple is very beautiful. So
it is, isn't it?
Work you're doing and all the best for the future.
Thank you very much.
In fact, in a recent interview, I heard Sanchayata say that rather than call the kingdom of Vijayanagaram, it should be called Vidyanagaram. See, Vijayanagaram is a warrior kingdom. It's a kingdom of many kings over many generations who have succeeded in battle, in ceding territory. But she said, well, I'll be happy the day it is known as Vidyanagaram. I thought that was very, very apt, and I was very, very impressed with that one single statement.
Thank you. That was my grandfather's wish. So if I get close to that, I'll be happy. Let's see.
In fact, most of Sanchayata's father's relations and mother's relations I know for many years, and many of them were either in school or college with me, with my sister or with my cousins. And her grandfather and great-grandfather used to consult my father and grandfather when they were practicing as lawyers in Madras, because that time Andhra and Madras were one. It was not divided into two states. So, I have a very long association with the kingdom of Vijayanagaram. And here we have this girl saying that I want this empire to be known as Vidyanagaram. But do tell us one or two things, a little bit about this Manas Trust, the Devasthanam Trust, because there's always an apathy towards fielding women in the front line when it comes to gods and deities. So how does this, how is this working out? Because I know there are a lot of posters against you in the state.
So yes, a lot of people feel that a woman doesn't have any business heading a religious trust or an educational institute. I mean, I don't want to get into it, but it's my father's own younger brother who feels that. So they've filed petitions in court saying a woman doesn't have the right to head any of this. But I'm confident of my legal position. But the truth is that we are deeply patriarchal and we are deeply feudal, and education and all doesn't change it. I mean, if people in my own family think like that, how can I question anybody else? So this is a reality, but it's okay. I will let my work speak for itself. I've always said, I've never thought of myself as a woman, and so I do this or I don't do that. Human being, if I'm good at my work, give me this space. If I'm not asking for any favors or for you to lower the standards for me. I'm very capable of fighting those battles and standing on my feet and letting my work do the talking. So I think last 1 year in the educational institutions, I'm very happy because I've managed to bring in fundamentalize the land records. I've computerized the accounts. All this used to be kept by hand like it was 150 years ago, which is ridiculous. I don't have to pay homage to my grandparents and my great-grandparents by sticking in 150 years ago. Bringing in new technology and newer solutions doesn't mean you're disrespectful. It just means that you'll equip the next generation with the necessary skill set. What's the point of living in the past? I mean, at least I don't believe you should only live off reflected journey. Create your own path. So in the trust, I've made a lot of changes, but the temple trust, of course, like all religious things, are deeply, deeply political. And so, A, I'm a woman, B, I'm not married, all the wrong things. So you can imagine all the things around me, but I'm loving it. So I hope at some point you'll all come here, come to Visakhapatnam, see the work I'm doing. You're all women, you know, in your own way, you're all achievers and you're doing so much. So please do come to Visakhapatnam and see what I'm doing.
Absolutely. That's where I was born. So I'll be there soon. So you have studied in Visakhapatnam in Timpani?
No,
have you studied? You were in Hyderabad, you said. Yeah, you were in Hyderabad. Yeah.
No, I studied in Delhi, in Basant Valley, and everything was in Delhi.
Okay. Good.
When I got that money, I decided to come back to Andhra and come back to my roots.
That's wonderful. Andhra, you have a lot of scopes, a lot of work to be done. Yeah. So good. Really, really a pleasure hearing you. So maybe we'll get in touch soon again. Thanks to Sita for getting such a lovely girl to speak to us today.
Absolutely.
Lovely meeting.
It was absolutely refreshing. Thank you, Sita. It was so wonderful to hear you speak today, Sanchayata.
No, you can't keep saying so many nice things. Now, don't believe everything I say. Come to Vizag and see it for yourself.
I wish I had met you earlier because I, up until COVID started, the last trip I did was to Visakhapatnam because I continue to travel all over for my work. So February is last when I was at Vizag. So once this is over, most likely I will be visiting. So get to see your work.
Come and see.
Sure.
And then come and see the temple and this. That's where I really need help. My Sana projects are on autopilot. I have those figured. But both in the temple and this, there are a lot of challenges. And there, if any can help, it's always welcome.
Okay,
let us know. I'm sure we can.
Yeah, what kind of help are you looking at?
I'll talk to Sita about it, Sanchita, and we'll see how we can sort of pitch in.
That'll be wonderful.
Yeah.
That's great. I look forward to that. Without shame, I shall ask because I need.
That's great.
You need to restore the temples.
Couldn't hear you.
Yeah. Yes.
The question on
yes, of course. So here goes. Well, such a refreshing change to have this bubbly speaker to light up the evening today. She is gutsy, definitely a go-getter, and I'm so happy to hear that she's from Basant Valley, where my children went for a very short while. What has really taken me, Sancheta, is that you've put this idea of capacity building being very, very important, very aptly. And the fact that you've shown that, there is stakeholder involvement with those children smiling and being proud of the water project, it only goes to show, how right it is. So really want to say thank you very much. I'm sorry I came in a little late because I was battling through the traffic. My driver has ditched me. I don't know what's wrong with him. He's down with a bit of fever. So we're wondering whether it's the C word. But anyway, you know, I drove down as fast as I could from Vasant Kunj, where I work as a senior transplant coordinator, specially to come for your program, because I was asked to give the vote of thanks, and it is my pleasure to do so. So all the best to you, and I hope you flourish and you take the Devasthanam Trust further to greater heights. And yes, I really mean it, you know, to count on us, at least my husband, he's not here, but to look at trying to see how we can do something for the temples, because that is important. Thank you.
Thank you to all the members for joining this evening to this wonderful, wonderful evening. Thanks a lot. Once again, thank you, Sanchita.
A big round of applause for Sanchita.
Very well done. Very well done.
Lovely.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
अधिनायक जय हे भारत भाग्य विधाता पंजाब सिंध गुजरात मराठा द्राविड उत्कल बंगा विंध्य हिमाचल यमुना गंगा उच्चल जलधि तरंगा तव शुभ नामे जागे तव शुभ आशीष मांगे गाहे तव जय गाथा जन गण मंगलदायक जय हे भारत भाग्य विधाता जय हे जय हे जय हे जय 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 हे
Thank you. Thanks, Sita.
Thank you for a lovely program, Sita. That was wonderful.
Nice to hear. And really, she looked so young. One would think she was in college or school. You know?
Exactly. Amazing.
Amazing work. Amazing work. Actually, maybe Shekhar Mehta may be interested to even, you know, people
well,
like...
I think, you know, it goes out to say that the youth have to be encouraged to take things forward, and we shouldn't underestimate them, because, you know, they're the ones with the bright ideas and the solutions that are part of the modern problems, you know, which is something we need to appreciate and incorporate in a lot of our projects. And this young lady has demonstrated it aptly, completely, you know. So there we are. Thank you, Sita, for such a lovely program.
Well, most welcome. But you know, of late, this Zoom reception audio is not very good.
Yeah.
How do you people find it?
Well, I found her voice cracking up while she was speaking.
No, it's very low, and it looks and it sounds as if it's coming from a distance. I mentioned this to Rajiv, and he says it's got something to do with individual phone settings, but this is increasingly becoming a little difficult to hear what people are saying.
Did Rajiv come to your place, Auntie, for the, okay. So I don't know, you need to check and see whether, you know, the reception's not good, because he's actually managing the Zoom program from... Because
even Chirag sent a comment saying even he can't hear.
Yeah, a lot of people couldn't. But you know, it's this thing about 4G, 5G as well, and fiber optics, and, you know, where you are. So if you're on the mobile phone and you haven't got a